is the DRC meeting for 4824 Edgemore. My name is Christina Sorrento, and I am the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division. And the lead reviewer for today is Saquon. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments that you received. I am going to turn it over to Saquon. He's going to highlight some of the larger issues we should talk about, and then really this is the applicant's meeting. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed. So Saquon, go ahead.
Thanks, Christina. This is the DRC for the 4824 Edgemore site plan amendment and preliminary plan amendment. We saw those previously in 2020 and 2021. This proposal is changing the units from up to 76 units to up to 112 units. So the changes here appear to be mostly internal, though our comments show that there's a little bit outside the building to take into consideration. Major comments from agencies and planning staff included discrepancies in parking metrics, various FAR and density calculation discrepancies between sheets and various documents. And there were also some right-of-way conflicts to resolve, including things related to ADA and free and clear access with utility and fire connections and conflicts to resolve on the north side of the building there. There are further comments that were issued via e-plan, but we can leave those unless there are questions that arise. I'm happy to hand it over to the applicant for discussion now.
Thank you. Pat Harris with Lurch, Early & Brewer on behalf of the applicant. Good morning, everyone. I think for the most part, most of the comments were pretty self-explanatory. We have several comments or questions, and then the review of the DRC comments actually sparked some other questions that we have, somewhat procedural questions. So first, in terms of the parking metrics, there was a comment that it looked like we had taken the NADMS reduction twice. In fact, that's not what happened. We took the BOS requirement of reducing by 20%, and then we took the NADMS. We'll explain that in the response letter, but I think that that's consistent with how all projects in Bethesda should be approached with respect to parking. There was a comment about our transportation counts and the fact that the hotel portion was evaluated as a business hotel. We will respond back to you with respect to that. We are waiting to hear back from our traffic consultant on that one. There was also a comment about the preliminary plan numbers, because we had gotten approved for 92 units in the, 92,000 square feet in the preliminary plan. And in fact, the site plan was 89,000. And Pat LeVay, do I have that correct?
Yes. Yeah, the
Okay.
site plan was slightly less.
Yes, and there was a comment about readjusting the preliminary plan to marry with the site plan, but the preliminary plan can always be a little bit more than the site plan, and we don't want to amend the preliminary plan because then once we've amended it, if we reduce it, then that's lost. And then the final specific comment was, there was a comment about eliminating a tree along Edgemore, which is a mitigation tree. And that was approved previously. None of the changes that we're proposing, and Saquon, you're correct that the vast majority of the changes are within the interior of the building. So we weren't sure, and I believe that came from DOT. We weren't sure what sparked that comment.
Yeah, and I think I can clarify a little bit on that. There may be a scaling issue, but I mean, there is, and the concern is, just as you can see on this picture, there's the tree pit, there's the utility vault, and then there's the building, and whether or not there's an ADA compliant path, I guess assuming that the grate's not ADA compliant on the vault. But there is 5 feet between that vault and the building. So I'll double check to make sure there's not a scale incorrect on our drawings, or maybe we need to add a dimension. But yeah.
Sorry, this is Katie McCraney. I think one of the issues, it's not showing up on this sheet because it's a little bit inconsistent, but I think there's also a fire connection, like the FDC. And we just want to make sure that we don't have a pinch point that results in a lack of ADA access. So you're hitting on all the other stuff, but I think that because, like, right here, I agree with you, you could probably eyeball it, and assuming the vaults are ADA compliant, it should be fine. But I think there's an FDC connection that may actually create a pinch point that's a little tight. So if you can take a look at that, it might be on a different sheet.
Yeah, and it's probably confusing too, because the symbol we use for those FDCs looks like it's about 3 feet long,
Right.
but it's really almost flush against the building, so it only sticks out a couple inches. So
Yeah, if you can just
totally-
dimension it on the final site plan, that'll really help us out.
Okay.
Thanks.
And then I think there was
Rebecca-
also Rebecca maybe had a comment too about that piece of dedication. I have no idea where that little triangle, how that ended up like that. It's just the way that the land was carved up, and we're just straightening that out. But that was part of the original preliminary plan approval.
Pat, this is Sam. I just wanted to say, as you know, as well as all of us here, the 5-foot free and clear sidewalk that we would require at the north side, the entirety of it would be located within the right of way or PI. So if you think you have it, you can show it. If not, that's need to be provided, basically.
Are we to assume that the grates on the vault are not ADA compliant? Is that
Correct.
the assumption here? Okay, so I'm just gonna look real quick. And I don't know that vault is truly.
Also, none of this is changing from, is that correct, Pat? That none of this has changed since the recently approved site plan?
Pat, that was a comment that we had at the time of original site plan. It was adopted by the planning board. I coordinated that, I think, with Pat before. So that's not a new comment. That's essentially the comment that was on the original site plan.
Yeah, I have to double check and see if this vault is actually drawn with the grates exactly as they are supposed to be, but definitely those two side grates on the picture, those grates on the sides are more than 5 feet from the property line. So you have 5 feet free clear the property. And then in the middle, that grate, as it's drawn there, is about 4 feet 8 inches. So I'm sure we can massage that all to get you to 5 feet. But I'll look into that and see, because sometimes those vault tops aren't drawn exactly the way they're built.
The other problem is this is Rebecca from DOT. The other problem is the sidewalk from the adjacent property goes right into the tree pit. And that's why we were talking about removing the tree pit.
No, there's a wedge of sidewalk. You see it in this picture. We're gonna.
Yeah, but I mean,
Do you see the triangle?
It seems like an abrupt change, especially for a person that is blind.
Yeah, but do you see? I think Rebecca. If you look to this is the preliminary plan, so it's probably not labeled. But if you look to the left of the vault, there's like a triangular piece there that has a little bit of hatching. We're going to expand this. Yeah, right there. That's new concrete sidewalk. I think it's labeled on the site plan. So you won't have that kind of weirdness, slammed into the tree, so to speak.
I think what we need to do is dimension this plan, and maybe it's on the site plan, but take another look, but also add some additional dimensions.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to show a 5-foot clear path through the site. The other concern was the bike racks and the location that they are, the way they're positioned, they'll impede the sidewalk as well. So if there's another place to put them or move them, change the direction of them.
Well, and actually, there's an inconsistency, and I think that one of the inconsistencies works in your favor. So you have the bike racks up against the building, but then I think you've shown them on other sheets where the bike racks are actually closer to the curb, which is also acceptable. And then maybe it's like less in the way. So whichever one works best for ADA clearance, we're fine with. But that was just another note that there's just like some inconsistency from sheets, which happens.
Yeah, I think I think what's happening here is there's a preliminary plan and a site plan. Maybe when we went to site plan, we fixed some of these things at site plan, and maybe they didn't get captured on the revised preliminary plan. So we'll go through it with a fine tooth comb and make sure we meet all this stuff. But moving the bike rack shouldn't be a problem.
Okay. Then, unless there were comments from my earlier comments, I wanted to raise a couple things briefly for discussion. One is, and this was brought up somewhat in the comments, currently we're proposing 112 units, of which up to 65 will potentially be short-term rentals, i.e. a hotel. And we are hopeful, given the fact of how long it takes to get to entitlement, and then how long through entitlement, and then how long it actually takes before we get to building permit, that we can keep that flexibility until the time of building permit, at which time, obviously, the PDU agreement will nail down the precise number, as will the impact tax payment. So that's one request. And then we were just seeking clarification on a couple of time frame issues. One is that in the Boz overlay zone, the requirement about needing to pull a building permit within 2 years of site plan approval, we are assuming that this pending site plan, once, assuming it gets approved, that then that 2-year period starts again, that we don't go back to the old one, which would provide a pinch in terms of timing. Can you guys clarify that or confirm that?
Hi, this is Maggie Gallagher from DHCA for the MPDU agreement. Just so you're aware, in order to get those building permits, we have to enter in the agreement to build, and that
Right.
has to happen before the permits are granted. So as long as we have those hotel units, that number for sure by the agreement to build, then you would be able to get your building permits from there. So we can keep it flexible, but it's usually best just to keep that like communication of what you guys are thinking at least ahead of time, so that if there are any issues or anything that come to mind on our end, we can let you know before, you're too far along in the process.
Got it. Yes, and that's what we were thinking, actually, that DHCA agreement would actually be the determining event, really.
Yep.
Thanks. How about the question about the site plan validity period, or the period of time within which to pull a building permit because of the BOS requirement?
And I think it's to file and have the building permit accepted.
Yeah.
2 years, but we're coming up on 2 years from the original approval in the spring, early spring.
Hey, Pat, this is Grace. We would need to make sure that the condition is amended in the resolution, because if it's not directly addressed, then it would be from the original site plan approval.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay, and we'll make a note of that when we resubmit as well. And then the other question was, and in terms of the APF, we're currently having a 5-year APF period, which ran from the approval of the preliminary plan, which was May 2020. And we would like to be able to seek a 2-year extension on that again, since there's now 2 years expired since that time.
Yeah, I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm pretty sure that when you get the preliminary plan amendment, we set a new validity period with that resolution, right, Christina? No?
You could.
But yeah, this is a different use and a different change. So yeah, I think we'll look into it, but I that's a tentative yes.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
And then
this is
finally-
Grace.
Oh,
Yeah,
go ahead,
just one more
Grace.
thing on that.
Yeah.
I think when we were reviewing the project, it didn't look as though it took into account the automatic extension that was given in 2020 by the county council. So you do benefit from that.
Okay,
So we might
I'll
not
look
need to
into
reset
that.
the validity date.
okay, I'll take a look at that as well. Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. And then the final thing, unless someone else on our team has any comments, is we're hopeful to get the resubmission back in shortly. There really weren't that many substantive comments, again, because most of the changes are happening into the interior and very few to the exterior. And so our question is there the opportunity? We're not anticipating the need for 2 resubmissions, but we're also wondering, is there an opportunity for an expedited hearing, or a hearing prior to, I believe it was February 16th was the date that was identified.
Pat, in regards to that, I can't give you an answer right now. I'm not sure about that. I will defer to Stephanie and get back to you when I'm able to do that. Otherwise, I can go over the schedule when we get to that point, and we'll see what we can respond with when we're able to confer with each other.
Okay, I appreciate that. And yes, anything that could be done to consolidate would be much appreciated. Pat, LeVay, did I forget anything? Anything else we need to comment on?
Nope. Thank you, everybody. I think I discovered while we're on here that it's the different models between the preliminary and site plans is why there's the couple changes and some things, but we'll fix all that up and get it back to you shortly.
So Saquon, that's all we had.
All right, thank you. So, Christina?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Pat, it looks like in the chat, Melissa said that zoning comments were sent to you directly via email. And she's asking whether you have any questions about that.
No, there was, I think there was a discrepancy in some of the square footages of our penthouse on the architectural plans, and we'll fix that. There was a question, I believe, from Melissa about whether or not the penthouse's size was approved to be more than the 25%. And I think, again, that was one thing that was already approved in the original site and preliminary plan. So I think it's just a matter of making sure that square footage is matched. And we did confirm that that square footage is part of the FAR. I think that was one of our other questions.
Oh, perfect. Yes, thank you so much.
No problem.
All right, thank you. So I will go over schedule as it stands right now. Based on the acceptance date of November 4th, we have a tentative planning board date of February 16th. The first resubmission would be due Wednesday, November 23rd, with the final, if necessary, due Friday, December 16th. And we need agency letters sent to us by Friday, January 6th. And staff report will be posted shortly thereafter, Monday, February 6th, lining up for the 16th of February planning board date. I can follow up and email you those dates so you have them directly, but we'll be in communication as we go forward to see how we move forward in terms of time frame and resolving all the comments.
Great.
That's it for me.
We appreciate that. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for the Donner property at Grays Lane. The lead reviewer is Amy Lindsay. Thank you for bringing up the plan, Amy. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments you received last week. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed, and I am going to ask Amy to kind of highlight some of the larger issues on this and then really turn it over to the applicant so that you can ask the questions you have. So Amy, go right ahead.
Wonderful. Good morning. Sorry I'm not there in person, and I'm particularly sorry now that I see that we've got a special guest in the building. So you've gotten our comments. I would say that the major issues that need to be addressed have to do with improvements in the right-of-way, making certain that fire and rescue needs are met, as well as DOTs, and also if there's any way to incorporate the driveways and this turnaround so that this development takes up less paving. That I understand we have requirements for fire and rescue, but if there's any way it can be incorporated into the layout of the two lots, that would be great. So those are our major comments, and now I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Great, thank you, Amy. Suli Cho, Land Use Council for the project. I have with me Dave McKee, who's our civil engineer, and Ira Donner, the property owner and applicant, to answer any questions. We appreciate the comments. We didn't have a whole lot to cover today. It's pretty straightforward. I just wanted to ask, I understand that there has been some correspondence received on this matter, which we have not seen. And that this administrative subdivision, as a result, will be going to the planning board. If you could forward that correspondence, would appreciate it.
Yes, and we will also upload it so it's available in DAIC so that the record is fully available to the public.
Okay, and so I will let Dave, we just had a few things I think he wanted to cover today. So Dave, if you wanted to just go through your few issues.
Yeah, not very much. I'll just respond to Amy's comment there about the pavement. Thinking about that this morning and reviewing your comment, thinking that maybe we could accommodate that by side load entries into the garages that we show off of that fire department turnaround. That would fit well with the plan we already have and the home placements as they're shown. So I think that has some potential there. We'll take a look at.
Great.
Amy, you also had some comments about some shared trees and ST4, which you can see on the plan there, which is a neighbor tree.
That is correct.
So you mentioned needing cooperation. We certainly understand if we were to propose a removal of those trees, we would need that cooperation. Is that something you're looking for now, or would we be putting that off, until actual permit stage?
No, I would go ahead and start that process now. ST5 is a variance tree that you are proposing for removal, and that, it's always hard to tell. I don't know if the trees have all been survey located, but
They
exactly.
have.
Okay.
That one we might want to take another look at to make sure we know exactly where that tree is.
Right.
I do think that ST4 maybe by moving the septic tank out of that location and pulling the LOD away from that tree, I think we'd like to really protect that tree. That's not our tree, obviously. So rather than having to go to the neighbor and ask to remove that, I think we'd be looking to save that tree.
I think
so.
Minimizing the impacts on your neighbor's trees would be
Yep.
a very good thing to do.
Yep. Okay. The other thing, Sue, would be just the comment about the easement in lieu of reservation, which I don't think we have an issue with that. It's just a matter of figuring out the process for parcel A and how to deal with that in the future. So forget who made that comment, but maybe Parker, if he's here.
Yeah, just let me know who, I didn't catch who made that comment, so we'd have to work through the specifics.
Yep.
Yeah, that was me. I think we just wanted, a longer term solution because I believe these reservations expire after 2 or 3 years. So as a team, we preferred it be, longer term and more permanent.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we would have an objection, having the street properly converted to public street right of way would be something that the property owner would not oppose. It's just the issue is the rest of the street, Gray's Lane, and when the other properties will be coming online, or whether the county will be going through and creating the street.
Right. Understood.
Yeah, that's really it for me. So I think we can address the comments and get these plans back to you. And get ready, I guess, for the hearing.
Great.
Do we have a tentative date or anything like that, schedule-wise?
No, but we will. I will send you some dates. I apologize for not having that in front of me. We'll send you some dates, and we will move this forward as quickly as possible while making certain that everything is properly noticed.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You.
Christina Sorrento. I'm the Chief of the Intake and Regulatory Coordination Division, and this is the DRC meeting for the Howard property. The lead reviewer is Philip Estes. Philip is working on pulling the plan up right now. The purpose of this meeting is for the applicant to ask any questions you might have based upon the comments that you received. And this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. I'll ask Philip just to highlight just the big issues we should talk about briefly and then turn it over to the applicant. So go right ahead, Philip.
Good morning, everyone. The few facts about this, the premises address, this is located at 16905 Bachelor's Forest Road in the RE2 zone. We have just over 2.5 acres of vacant and unapproved land. And this is a admin preliminary plan to create one lot from a deeded parcel. The applicant has received agency comments regarding the first round of submittal. Staff and agencies are available here today to answer questions and comments you may have. Some of the main items that were commented are regarding issues with the Rustic Road and fire department access points, stormwater management. There are a couple of environmental comments and DOT comments as well. So with that, I'll turn over to the applicant for discussion, question, or comments.
Thank you, Dave McKee, Benning & Associates, land planner for the project. And Philip, you just pinpointed the topic that I'd like to discuss today really has to do just with the Rustic Road matters and fire department. So we've met with the Rustic Roads Committee once already, and I had talked to them about, I've also talked to Marie Labaugh about the plan. We've been back and forth. So I met with the committee and talked to them about the idea of doing some minor widening along the road in front of the hydrant that's nearby. It's about 300 feet away from the driveway that we propose, and also some minor widening along the edge where the driveway is to be located. The idea there, the widening would be to get the road to a 20-foot of pavement width near the hydrant and at the entrance. The committee was a bit surprised by that, not really supportive of that at all, and so they did not make a decision on the plan that day. So I plan to go back to them in December to talk to them once more. So I think where we're headed with the plan, given their reaction, would be just to put the modified apron into the site that we've seen on other projects, 20 feet of pavement width, 60 feet or so back into the property. So quite a bit different than what we're showing on the driveway or the site here, which is just a 10-foot wide driveway with very small curves into the roadway. So we need to reconcile, I guess, between those two agencies to figure that out. And I also see some of the comments from DOT that are quite a bit different than we're used to seeing on a rustic road. So we just wanted to hear a little bit more about that and what that might mean for our plan here.
David, this is Deepak with DOT. Yeah, our major comments were putting in sidewalk because there's a school out there to the north of this property as well. And we believe, the sidewalk is needed, especially for pedestrian, considering pedestrian safety and the traffic flow within that area. That's our recommendations. And Andrew is here as well. Andrew, if you want to add more to it, feel free.
No, that was the gist of it. I'm just going to reiterate, there's a big safety need out here. There's, of course, the middle school next door, a high school very close by, and just in general, Bachelor's Forest has got a lot of uses that this has been part of our comments on the Rustic Roads plan update, is that Bachelor's Forest really stands out as a street that needs pedestrian and bicycle attention. But this site, especially this site, right next to the school.
So Philip, what does Park and Planning have to say about that, please?
Well, this is Jamie Pratt from the Master Plan Review side, and also I attend the Rustic Roads Advisory Committee meetings. And I understand that they did kind of push off a decision to try to understand better why they're being asked to widen this road. But if they were going to widen the road at the hydrants, did you look at the hydrant that's to the north? It seems to be about 10 feet closer or equidistant. It's at Old Vic Boulevard on the south, and it seemed like if you're going to widen the rustic road, that might be more favorable. I don't know, but I was just curious if it had even been discussed.
I didn't discuss it with the committee, but I did look at it, and would consider that as an option, certainly.
It looks like because it's already kind of been curbs and a little bit widened at that location, might be more amenable to them.
If it was feasible, yeah, that would certainly be an option versus the other location.
Okay. But yeah, I did get the impression that they were preferring the widened driveway versus the widened road.
Right.
It sounds like they need to do both.
This is Rebecca from DOT. The Rustic Roads is an advisory committee, correct?
That's right.
And what actual power, I mean, they can make a recommendation, but planning board can make a decision otherwise, right? I mean,
yes.
We're talking about safety improvements and operational improvements. You know, making sure you have a fire, you know, the fire can be put out for your house. To me, you know, I think that we need to refigure out exactly what their position is and what authority or lack authority that they have. And, you know, we need to make sure that, you know, safety, you know, we've talked about this before on other roads. And, you know, if this road isn't safe, it should be made so that it is safe. And we shouldn't be making decisions because we have a 70-foot right of way that they're required to provide. It's to provide a scenic look and the view. But if everything has changed out there, then what makes it rustic anymore? And we have to make sure that it's providing safe access to schools and to your house. And to me, it just seems like that we need to make a decision, and planning should be listening to DOT and saying, you know, if we're saying it's not safe out there, then maybe we need to rethink our position. So, I mean.
Hey, Rebecca, I don't disagree with you. I mean, the Rustic Roads Committee is staffed by DOT, and that should be made clear to from DOT to the Rustic Roads Advisory Committee. And clearly the board can look at, you know, safety issues, and we will. I mean, that's part of our review, part of your review as well. Mm-hmm. I think the dilemma, and this is more for Dave and your client, is that it currently is a rustic road. And we do understand that there probably will be testimony, and I know that Andrew has weighed in a number of times, you know, wondering maybe why, or should it stay in, or should it stay out? And I think, you know, we do have a public hearing on the 17th to be able to have that discussion, or at least that's presented. It's not really a discussion with the board, it's a hearing. But we don't disagree with you on the safety issue, but we do have to recognize that it's currently is a rustic road. And, you know, I think that's up for a little bit more discussion here as to, you know, what's appropriate in terms of improvements. But Dave, for you and your client, I mean, it's a little bit of a dilemma because it is a current rustic road. And, you know, we know that the RAC is clearly advisory, but we do take heed with, you know, a lot of the recommendations and try to balance them with what we have in front of us in terms of an application. And I do realize this is one house.
So I think from our side, then, what we would be looking to do here would be to do whatever improvements have to be done to satisfy our fire department. I think beyond that, since it's a rustic road, I don't think we're looking to build a sidewalk here in this location for one house.
Well, and I'm not necessarily weighing in on that side of it yet, Dave. I mean, I agree with Rebecca that, you know, if it's a safety issue, it needs to be addressed. And that's something that would be part of any kind of evaluation we do. And clearly, we're right in the middle of the public hearing for the functional plan in terms of what happens to this road. And they know that as well. And they're going to take the position that it should stay in, I think, just like they would on just about any road that's rustic. So, I mean, we're a little bit caught in between, I think, in terms of how to move something ahead here. But at the same time, you know, we definitely want to take the safety considerations into account, and that should be at the top of the list.
May I speak? I'm the applicant. Is it appropriate for me to speak up?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Hi, my name's Joe Howard. Hi, everybody. I appreciate everybody's time, first of all. Just if I could provide the historical perspective, because my parents built their home here in 1981. So I've seen it all on Bachelor's Forest. I mean, I would not maintain that it's unsafe. You know, I would maintain that as progress has come to Bachelor's Forest, you know, the infrastructure has kept up. I mean, I look out this window right here where I'm sitting and I can see Old Vic, which wasn't there when I was a kid. So Old Vic, there's all these new houses, but there's also a whole new road that has, you know, that is there to accept, you know, the flow of traffic that good council brought with it. You know, there's a whole new Farquhar Middle School. So, you know, the school is actually farther away than it was when I attended. So, you know, as progress has come, I just kind of feel like the road has kept up and the infrastructure surrounding it has kept up. The Christian Academy down at the end of the road, you know, you've got Georgia Avenue taking care of that. You've got Old Vic and 108 taking care of good counsel. So, you know, the gentleman who mentioned it's one house, yeah, I appreciate that perspective. You know, I just kind of feel like, you know, as it relates to it being a rustic road, that certainly is part of the appeal, I think, you know, to living here. Yeah, I'm kind of excited to finally put a home on a piece of ground that my parents have owned all these years. But I just kind of feel like, you know, I think that the development that has happened around here has maintained that rustic feel to the road. And I am optimistic that the home design we've chosen and, you know, and it will kind of maintain that as well. You know, so we're living here, so there won't even be any more new cars. We're living with my parents or with my mom at the moment. So that's just kind of my perspective. I appreciate your time, you know, and letting me have my say, but you know, we're obviously very excited to, you know, have a home on this piece of ground after all these years.
I think you need to testify on the 17th for the rustic roads.
I can do that.
I really do. I mean, I think you know, at the beginning of what you just said, you're actually kind of making DOT's argument that, yes, you know, maybe this shouldn't be a rustic road and that we do need, you know, your part of the argument was these roads are keeping up with the development that has come in around it and not necessarily what's feeding into it. And I think if you look at the entire network that, you know, follows Bachelor's Forest, like Old Vic, I don't know that has kept up. I mean, Bachelor's Forest hasn't kept up, and I think, you know, and I'm not going to speak for DOT, but, you know, they're looking at how do we make it safer to a lot of the infrastructure that's already come in and the new uses, like, well, not uses, but, you know, like the new school, even good counsel, even though Old Vic is supporting that. But in this case, you know, it's.
I would agree. I mean, I think you're making the case for by the fact that you have to widen the roadway to provide fire access, the infrastructure has not kept up. So I would disagree with you. I think that there's a lot of development around there. I think we want to make sure that it's safe for everybody that uses the road, and the road has not been maintained. So I think that for DOT, and this is from development review, I would say that it is not a rustic road anymore based on the development that's come around it.
So this is Maria LaBaugh with Fire Rescue for Development, and this road is not kept up with the need for public services given the load that's been added to it for occupancy. That's the bottom line that I'm at right now. So yes, it's just one house, but every one house adds to the need to make sure that services are appropriate.
This is Jamie again. I want to make sure I understand that the options are to widen the road where the hydrants are and one of them, and to widen the road where the driveway is, if the driveway stays at 10 feet, or just widen the driveway to 20 feet, but you'd still have to, I mean, was there an option to put in another hydrant to not, what was the, was there ever a discussion, Marie, of needing to put in another hydrant here?
The first time adding a second hydrant was discussed was actually at an internal meeting yesterday. That's not something that's been presented to me yet, but I do know that pulling a 6-inch T is extremely expensive. If you go to WSSC and run through that. So the options were widen the road at the hydrant, widen the road at the driveway, or widen the road at the hydrant, put in a 35-foot wide driveway apron. A third option would be to add another hydrant, but again, someone would need to work out the cost for that.
All right. So, I mean, based on those options, the advisory committee will have to make a recommendation, and then we'll have to make a decision. It could be we agree with them, it could be we don't, but I just wanted to make sure I understood the options.
Okay, are there any other questions or comments?
This is all that we had on our side to discuss. Yeah, so thank you for the conversation.
What are the next steps on this discussion?
Next steps would be to, does this need to be presented to the rustic roads?
They've seen it once, so I'll be back before them in December, their December meeting. And in the meantime, I'm sure I'll be working with Marie to try to come to a conclusion on what we want to do there.
Need to find some sidewalk. I think the next step is, you know, show us a couple options that could better meet rustic roads intentions for how to
Minimize impact.
Minimize the impact. So one of those is, as mentioned, move that widening to near Old Vic. Was that what you were saying?
That was one thing, just if you're going to widen at the hydrant, that seemed to me, and I don't know what the committee would think, but to me, it looked like it would be a better option just from, it's already kind of wider there.
Yeah, so show an option there. Obviously show whatever you have to do for the driveway, because it sounds like that's going to need a wider entrance and or street widening in front of it. And ideally, the best option sounds to be just co-locating the street widening in front of the property plus placement of a hydrant there, and see what they think about that. So showing giving them a couple options, and we can determine which one's the best. And then we can circle back internally with the question on the sidewalk.
But if the hydrant one is prohibitively expensive, it might not be something that they would want to present as an option if they're not.
Yeah, I think that's our least desirable option.
Not able to do it.
Well, I guess if you could give some, you know, I don't know what the cost is, but if you could cost it out, let us know what that would be. That could help with the determination.
Are we saying that we want to see a drawing of the various options that Marie offered to meet fire access? And then once we see the 3 options, we decide which one is the preferred option and present that to the Rustic Roads Committee? Is that?
Yeah, that sounds to be the right approach.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what we need to be doing. Again, keeping all of our competing interests in mind. It's not out of the program yet, although we have some recommendations that we'll be taking to the planning board and council, it sounds like. So for the time being, kind of setting our preferences aside on whether or not it's a rustic road, it is a rustic road. So I do want to try to minimize the impact to this existing rustic road as much as possible at the current. But again, I'm not dismissing everything you just said. Let's just put the options in front of us, and for the time being, try to make the best recommendation we can make. So,
David,
very good.
Do you have any questions about what you have to do or next steps?
No, I think I've got it. Thank you, Sandra.
And then probably step 1 is just give us a cost estimate for a new hydrant there. That way we can
sure
potentially narrow things.
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Barry.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.